Hey everyone, welcome back to City Skylines, to another episode from the Aurelia city. We started building between the airport and the downtown in the past 2 episodes, and so far we built a new bridge over the river for cars, trams and pedestrians, built a new station for trams and light rail where 2 lines cross, and just fill the area with some mixed buildings, mostly next to the river. Today I will do something that I needed to do for a really long time, and something that's necessary for the completion of this entire city. I will revisit the actual map and do some terraforming. I've been building the city for over 2 years by this point, and we are slowly but surely making our way towards the limits that are hard-coded into the game. Most important are the network limitations. Right now, I'm somewhere around 2/3 of the limits, so not exactly all the way up there, but considering that the city is nowhere near finished, I need to start having some endgame in mind. Otherwise, we would have to leave it half done, and no one wants that. So let's get to the time lapse, and I will talk more about what I need to do. So we are going to start with the corner where I built the airport, and I think I mentioned this when we started building the airport project, that I will have to revisit this corner and do some terraforming in here, because I'm not sure how this map looked like when we started the airport project, but I'm pretty sure that it wasn't this flat. I think there were some mountains or hills, I'm not sure how tall, but there was definitely something, right? So we need to put that back somehow, respecting the airport, of course. And I'm also going to go over the entire map and do some similar terraforming, especially towards the edges of the map, I guess. And I'm going to mention the reasons for that as we progress further. But anyway, what am I doing with these funny looking gravel roads right next to the airport? So I'm going to do terraforming around the airport. That's going to increase some terrain elevation around the airport. So make some mountains around it, some hills. But there obviously needs to be some space left in front of the runways. Now, kind of similar problems that I had in Altengrad. I'm building something first that was obviously not done like this in real life. Obviously in real life, if this was in real life, obviously Aurelia is not realistic city. But anyway, we would already have the terrain around the airport, right? And they would build the runways respecting the terrain. But I'm kind of doing the opposite way. In here, I'm building the airport, or I already built the airport, and now I'm trying to do the terraforming so it makes sense around it. So you can already probably tell what I'm doing with these roads. I'm trying to get an idea if it's actually realistic or not, or like semi-realistic or not, with the runway placements that I have in here. So I found a document online made by the American something aviation agency, FAA, I guess it's the abbreviation. I don't know, whatever. It's like several hundreds of pages of like guidelines or some recommendations or I don't know, rules, laws, I don't know, for airports as well, like runway markings. That's not really important, but there was a chapter about like empty space in front of runways. And there were exactly these kinds of shapes, in like pictured there. And they had some dimensions. I basically took the largest dimensions, I guess for the biggest planes, largest runways, something like that. And I created a very similar shape to that with those roads. Now I made them elevated and I just made them in front of the runways. And I basically checked if maybe there are some mountains, cutting through that shape, that plane. And if maybe we need to do some terraforming. So with the terrain that's already on the map, it's not a problem, but I'm going to have to respect it with the terrain that I'm going to put around the airport where it's flat right now. So that's one thing that I'm doing. I'm pretty sure that there are more to it towards the empty space in the surroundings of airports, I guess. But I don't really understand these things too much, so I just took this guideline. Maybe it's enough. At least it's like a starting point to make it look, semi-believable, right? Anyway, that's almost done. It's actually already done. And now I'm doing another very important thing that was not exactly all that apparent at first, but it actually did help quite a lot. So what is this? Now, the city of Aurelia is roughly in the center of the map. And there are a couple of highways that are going towards it. Now, highways in city skylines are usually built so that you're going to build like one direction and then the second one, the opposite direction. and they are separate networks. Now, this is of course going to mean that you are going to burn twice as many limits for the networks if you are building these highways. So I decided, why not change this highway into a single network? That's exactly this road. It's like a street level road. It's not like a highway, but that doesn't really matter. I'm going to use the traffic manager to increase its speed to something that the highway would see anyway. And I'm going to use this road where it's not really going to be visible. So for example, you could have seen me actually do like a transition between the nice looking Shuto highways and this street, and it's below the runway where there's like a tunnel, and after the tunnel there's just not going to be any kind of city expansion, so no one's really going to see it. But I do need that connection for the actual traffic, right? But why waste double the network numbers on these highways if no one is going to see them? So I'm just going to use the single road, single street, and it will actually save a couple of hundred network limits, like nodes and segments. So that's actually quite significant. I was quite surprised how many limits it actually saved. So that was nice. That was nice. Now this is going to be kind of funny at first. So this is me doing terraforming, probably for the first time ever. Aurelia was obviously built on a map that came with the game, I think with the Park Life expansion. I think Mountain Meadows is the name of the map. And Altengrad as well. Altengrad was built on a map from the workshop, not from the game, but from the workshop, but it was already done, right? I know that there is like a trend between YouTubers that they are usually creating their own maps, but I was never really good at making maps, so I decided to just skip that part with all the projects that I did and just get a finished map. But yeah, so this is probably going to look kind of interesting when I'm trying to do some terraforming and create like a natural looking hill. So I've never done this before, so I'm kind of learning at this point how to do it. But I think in the end I actually got the hang of it, because I was trying to copy the features of the hill, next to this place, next to that little valley that I put there, and that's obviously necessary because I need to make it kind of blended together so that it looks like it's been built with one style. So that's not exactly all that easy, because I guess that if I did it everything from scratch, by myself, then obviously it would look the same, but it might look actually worse. So who knows? Anyway, enough of that. I'm going to kind of give you like a chronological story how I thought the terraforming is going to work. So at first I used some of these like a very sharp tools for building like the highest elevations, right? And then I thought that all it's going to take is to just smooth it down, kind of sand it down, polish it, and it's going to be done. But that's not exactly how it worked. It made the hill look very unnatural and not exactly very good looking at all. So, I had to try something else. So next, I was kind of fiddling with some of these like templates, or I'm not sure how they're called. That little screen in the bottom, not really bottom, but in the left corner with the terraforming tools. So there are like circles and stars and all those kinds of shapes that you can use. I thought I could just use some of these shapes and just randomly go around this place and just do something with it. But that didn't really work either, especially for creating the main features of the terrain. But finally I decided to rewatch the tutorial. I think it was a tutorial made for the official City Skylines channel. I'm not sure, but it was the one that was made by Fluxtrans. You probably have seen it. You definitely know Flux. He was building a lot of his own maps, and he's very good at it. So, if you ever need some kind of like a reference how to terraform, definitely go check out that video, because the guy definitely knows what he's doing, right? And he's using a lot of that first tool, the first button, the arrow up and down tool for the terraforming. But he's using it, I guess, with the strength of the brush set very low and also kind of small. And he's basically painting the entire like mountain ranges and hills and all those kinds of valleys and features only with that tool. So this is actually what I've been doing. Yeah, that's exactly what I've been doing right here. Obviously not as well as him, but I tried to do it as best as I can, right? So at this point I'm using a very small brush, still with the like smooth edges of the circle, and I'm just trying to paint the very rough like ridges or something. Now at this point I should probably also explain the motivation for this. So I'm trying to make as much of the map as possible to be unusable for building, right? So to make some of these terrain features so that nothing is going to be ever built on them. So past the airport, I never really wanted to continue building the city anyway, but I had to have some reason for that, right? I can't just leave it flat. Maybe I should have put some farms in there, but I don't really feel like building farms in Aurelia at all. So I just decided to make all the places on the map that I'm not going to build into some mountains or hills or just inaccessible places, right? And that kind of looks fine. It works. It's fine to do it like that. So, that's like a legit approach, I think. So that's exactly what we're doing. Now, as you can see, I'm continuing with this hill with like a smaller brush. And I'm still using the first button, the first tool, and I'm creating these little valleys because that's what Flux does quite a lot, creating these like cuts into the ranges and then kind of splits the ranges and kind of make it look like a tree with branches or something. If you look at it from the top, I'm not exactly copying that in here, but it's definitely the idea that you can use. I probably skipped a lot of terraforming in here now that I look at the edited time lapse. But basically, after I'm done, I then take my previous technique that I was struggling with, but this time I'm having it for like the finishing touches on the range, and I'm constantly checking if what I build here with the terraforming, if it at least somewhat resembles what was already on the map. So this map, like I said, it's a vanilla map, and it had this like wrinkles, on the mountain sides. So that's not necessarily what I've seen Flux do on his terraforming, but it is on the map, and like I said, I need to copy the style that's been on the map. So these wrinkles are made by, again, that terraforming tool, these shapes, and I'm actually using the smoothening tool, and I'm just going very fast around the entire area, and I'm trying to just do the same technique that I guess the original vanilla creators of this map also used. All right, so that's pretty much done, and I think it actually turned out looking all right. You can tell that it doesn't really have the same style, the different mountains, but it's very like an unnoticeable change, right? So it's actually quite fine. But I need to wrap it up, the commentary about that hill, because we are starting to do something very important in here. So, like I said, I don't want to leave the places on the map that I'm not going to build. I can safely say that I'm not going to build these places. I don't want to leave them completely flat without anything, okay? And in this place, I don't really want to convert the entire map into mountains, right? That's just not going to look good either. So why not actually extend some of the water surfaces to the rest of the map? Why not do that? So that's exactly what I've done to the original river. Also, just a tiny bit, I widened the river where it was going towards the edge of the map, because it was kind of thin in there, and I decided to build another river. So I measured the height of the original one, of the one that goes to the center of the map, and I built another. Now this is the valley that goes from the airport. So that's the valley that we have seen previously, that actually goes kind of towards the airport, but before it reaches the airport, it kind of goes around this mountain, which kind of looks natural. Rivers kind of copy the mountain shapes. Again, it's obviously not how it was originally made by nature this time. You usually had the rivers first well, you kind of had the ocean, but obviously as the ocean went down, you ended up with the rivers kind of carving the the valleys, or like icebergs carving the valleys or something like that. I don't know. I'm not a geologist, whatever, but I would imagine it went something like that. Okay, so I did that river. I did the river, and it was going fine. I had to connect it to the main river before the dam, actually, because the dam is kind of lower, and I didn't really have. I didn't really see any kind of path that I could lead it down towards the dam, but it wouldn't really make sense, right, to have a river connect to the original one below the dam. So it had to connect to the reservoir, and I had to really make sure that the water levels are the same, because obviously the dam is built so that it has like a constant water level, so that all the detailing works around it, because it's made to that particular water level. It cannot be changed, right? Even the spillways are kind of designed for that. But obviously bringing more water, more volume of water to it is kind of going to destroy that. So I kind of fiddle with it. I'm obviously leaving all that out. It's not really all that important. We are going to return to that river, by the way, because it took some time before it filled the entire volume of the river that I built, that I terraformed. So we went to the other side of the map again, and in here I'm going to do another increase in the volume or the area of water that we have on the map. And this time it's going to be that little pond that the island city rested in, right? So this time I'm going to make it so that there's actually another river that's flowing from, off the map and into the reservoir that's actually made by that second smaller dam that we built not so long ago, relatively, and the reservoir that has the island city, like I said. So again, as you can see, it kind of takes a long time before water finally fills all these volumes. Now in here I'm redoing some of the highways. I'm not exactly sure why I didn't do the single network highway. I guess that this place is still going to be like visible in some cinematics or in the city in general, so I didn't really want to use that single street because I don't really like it. I just use it because it saves the segments. I'm going to completely get rid of that highway that went into the original valley that used to be on the map, but this time the valley is going to be reserved only for the river. It's just going to be there for the river, and that's it. And I'm going to make the cliff faces just go straight into the valley where the river is going to be. There are not going to be any like flat spaces, around the river or something. And the highway that was going in that direction, I actually decided to create a new valley for it and get rid of yet another valley that used to be on the map that I'm never really going to expand the city into. So it might actually destroy some of the original geometry that I set up 2 years ago, pretty much, for the highways. Actually, in the very first episode, we did the entire highway network, the main highway network on the map. So that's going to be destroyed. So that's actually a major change to the overall feel of the city, I guess. Well, not really the city itself inside of it, but to the system around the city. So actually cutting into this hill in here was not all that difficult. I obviously had some experience with the terraforming by this point, so that was fine. Yeah, this is the valley that I'm going to get completely rid of. So that's actually going to go the highway that I got rid of. Yeah, I'm already building it over here. I'm going to make it turn more towards the river again, and then it's just going to go parallel, and it's just going to end there, it's going to go off the map exactly where the original river starts. And this valley is just going to be completely covered with some more mountains. And this place is actually in the corridor, or it's aiming, or the runways from the airport that are aiming towards this place. So this is the place where the gravel roads that I built for the outline of the corridor actually come in handy, because I did make this hill slightly higher than it should have been for the runways. So it's a good thing that I still kept them there. Now I'm trying to widen this valley for the road, but at the same time I'm trying to make it look at least somewhat natural in here. so that it's not really going to look like I just, cut this hill because of the highway. I'm trying to make it look like the valley was always there, and the highway was just built there because, well, there is a valley, right? So hopefully I achieved that. It's not really perfect, but it is what it is. It's all right, I guess. So this is kind of important in here. Every time you need a river that's originating at much higher elevation than the sea level is, you have to make that like a border, terrain border on the edge of the map. So it's not exactly looking good, but it's what the game mechanics kind of need. So filling some of these places where, like I said many times before, I'm never going to expand the city into. And this is actually the river that we built, the first new river that we built. And you can see that the water is very, very lazy in here. I built that little turn, the curve for the river right next to the airport. And I also made it slightly wider because it just looked much better. Oh, I haven't connected it to the main reservoir in here just yet. So yeah, at this point I was very reluctant and I kind of afraid of connecting it. But well, we have to do it at some point. So here we go. So yeah, I was actually running the game. This is like a very rare episode from Aurelia when I'm pretty much the entire time lapse I'm playing with the game unpaused because I obviously need to have the water flowing and filling all these places. I'm pretty sure that when building this for this episode, like the most time in game probably passed because I had to let the game run for like maybe a couple of days actually for the water to completely stabilize on the entire map because like I said, I had to have like a very specific water level at the dam, at the upper level of the dam. And that was very difficult to maintain with two rivers flowing into it. The third river is obviously not flowing into it because it's stopped by the second smaller dam. I didn't make it actually functional so that the water flows through it. This is yet another highway that I built probably all the way in episode 1. And this one is definitely not going to be all that visible, so I'm redoing it into that one segment piece, right? So I'm just doing it to save the limits like I explained before. And I'm just going to increase the size, the area of this like a second or third reservoir, even though technically I guess this is still part of the main reservoir of the city. I'm not exactly sure what it was going to be the purpose of this reservoir because it's kind of, on the city, so it's probably not really going to be for drinking water because there's going to be some garbage floating into it. Inevitably, there's the industrial zone right next to it. So I'm not really sure what it's going to be. Maybe it's like a flood reservoir, something. I'm not exactly sure. It doesn't really matter. It looks fine. So that's all the reason that I need. This hill in the center of this area, I kind of wanted to say in the center of the map, but it's not really. It used to be here, but I just made it slightly larger. I do have some plans for expanding the city in that direction. So I didn't really want to completely convert it into like mountains all around that second reservoir. Or, well, as we explained, just the reservoir, whatever. Now, the terraforming is pretty much done at this point, so I'm just filling the place with some trees. And I'm not trying to position them absolutely everywhere because remember, I am not using the unlimited trees mod. Because I am using the tree snapping mod in Aurelia, which is like a major difference between Aurelia and Altengrad. I kind of do need to have tree snapping in this city. So as you can see, this is how the map looked like before we did any kind of terraforming, and this is the finished result after today's episode. So you can actually see that the city without the airport, I guess, is absolutely tiny. It's really tiny. It's super small compared to the size of the entire map. And if this is what 2/3 of the network limits look like, then obviously I would never be able to fill the entire map. But with the new terraforming, we converted a bunch of these places into just rivers and reservoirs and lakes and something and mountains. So it's going to be a lot easier for me to finish the city. Now I do have some vague ideas about pretty much every single direction away from the downtown. So I'm pretty confident that I can finish this map, if I'm not going to suddenly get bored of it or something. But I do have plans for, like I said, so pretty much all the areas around the city where we haven't built anything yet. So I definitely want to revisit the island city. There are stuff to be built on the hills around it, closer to the city, obviously. I do have very specific plans for the like shores around the river, more towards the dam area. That's where I would like to build some very specific project. And we're also going to continue with what we started in the past episodes, in the past 2 episodes. So that's pretty much the entire region between the airport and the rest of the city. So those are the plans. Hopefully, I'm going to manage to build all that, and we can only look forward to how it's going to look like, right? So anyway, guys, that's it for this slightly shorter episode from Aurelia. I hope you liked today's episode. If you did, then you can always put a thumbs up underneath it. You can share the video with your friends and subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Thank you for watching. Take care and goodbye.